from the top of Dalid Amud Aleph, Rabbi Zera Amar. It's about 7 or 8 lines from the top. Rabbi Zera Amar, Moshe la'olam haviyada. So if you remember, we were discussing how is it that David HaMelech knew when Chatzos was, and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't, because Moshe Rabbeinu said Ki Chatzos. So that implies that he didn't know when Chatzos was. And yet David HaMelech got up at exactly Chatzos. So how is it that David knew and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't? So we had one answer about the harp, that was David HaMelech's alarm clock. Now we have a second answer. Really, they both knew. Both Moshe Rabbeinu and David HaMelech knew when Chatzos was. Okay, so then Kinor Lamalei, why does he need the harp that we mentioned, the aforementioned harp that woke him up in the middle of the night? Why does he need it if he knew it already? So Asuruye Mishnah say, as we mentioned, David HaMelech did not sleep very much. So as one would imagine, if someone doesn't sleep very much, they need a little extra chizik to wake up, just physically, right? He slept very, very, very little, half hour, whatever it was. So he needs a little extra, something to push him out of bed. Okay, so that explains David HaMelech. What about Moshe Rabbeinu? If Moshe Rabbeinu knew, as we mentioned, Moshe Rabbeinu said it happened about Chatzos. Right? It'll happen about Chatzos. If he knew exactly when Chatzos was, why didn't he just say it'll happen at Chatzos? Why about that time? So our answer is Moshe Kesovar. Moshe thought, Shema Yitu Itztenegini Paroi. Maybe Paro's servants. What will happen? They'll say, Moshe Badai Hu. Moshe's a phony. Moshe Rabbeinu is a phony. He said that the firstborns were going to die at 12 a.m. And then what happened? They died at 12:01. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu said, like Chatzos, around that time, therefore was up for interpretation, so they couldn't accuse him of being a phony. So if it happened at 12:01, okay, I said around Chatzos. The Amar Mar Lamash L'Shonicha Loimar Eini Idea. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with saying I don't know. Rashi says 30 times in shas, he says the words I don't know. There's nothing wrong with saying that sometimes. Beautiful lesson. Shemet espada v'ta'aches. Rashi Amar bepalga orta detleisar nagi arveisar havikai. So second answer, Rashi says why Moshe Rabbeinu said kichatzos. Bepalga orta detleisar. The time he said the words kichatzos was at midnight of the 13th of the month. Negai arveisar havikai, telling them about an occurrence on the 14th. V'hachi kamar, and this is what Moshe Rabbeinu was telling them. Moshe Yisrael, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu lemachar kichatzos alayla ki ha'idna ani yaiti b'seich mitzrayim. Meaning it was an exact time, and Moshe Rabbeinu knew exactly when it was. But he's saying just at the same exact time that I'm telling you this on the 13th, it'll happen the same exact time on the 14th tomorrow. So he's saying, Kichatzos, like this time, is the same exact, it'll be the time tomorrow. Beautiful. 2 dots. L'David Shamra Navshi Ki Chassid Ani. So we're going to see a lot of different interesting agaritas about David HaMelech here saying, look how righteous of a person I am. We're obviously going to have to discuss what does that mean? Is David a haughty person? Obviously not. But we'll get into that. Ki Chassid Ani. David HaMelech says, I'm a chassid. I'm a pious person. Levi and Rabbi Yitzchak both interpret this. Chad Amar, what does this mean? Kach Amar David L'fnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. David said before, Hashem Yibon Shloim Loi Chassid Ani. I'm not a chassid. Shekol Malachim Mizrach U'Ma'ariv Yishnam Ad Shalosh Shais. All the kings in the east and the west, they sleep 3 hours into the day. They sleep a lot. V'ani Chatzos Laila Kom L'Hayzizcha. And as we mentioned, I get up at Chatzos. I barely sleep. So obviously I'm a pious person, David HaMelech says. V'idach. And what is the other person? What's the other interpretation of this pasuk? David says in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Loi chassid ani, I'm not a pious person. All the kings in the east and the west, they all sit and they schmooze with each other in groups, and they sit and they schmooze with each other. I dirty my hands with blood and women that miscarriage and have discharges and all these things. Meaning he's looking at different bloods and everything to make sure that a woman can be with her husband, to be matire them. So all these kings are just schmoozing, looking around. Look what I'm doing. I'm trying to bring a husband and wife together. Everything that I do, it goes to my Rav first. It goes to my Rebbe first. I ask him first. I say to my Rebbe, Yafadanti, did I judge well? Yafa chayavti, was I chayiv on this or not? Yafa zechiti, was it supposed to be a schos here or not? Yafa taharti, did I make the right ruling about taharis, about purity? Yafa tamisi, about impurity? I'm never embarrassed. I'll ask him any question. David HaMelech says, I'll ask my Rebbe anything, and I'm not embarrassed. What does the pasuk mean when it says he spoke to the nation, connected the kings, and he wasn't embarrassed? Tana, that's what it means. It means that he was never embarrassed. He spoke to the kings, and he was never embarrassed. It's the Shulchan Aruch actually says it's something interesting. One can't be embarrassed when they ask a question. Some halachas are embarrassing. Some things are embarrassing to ask. Some things seem very small that they're not significant enough to ask. But obviously, it's important to. It's a very difficult thing to do. Obviously, easier said than done. But important not to be embarrassed, as we learn from David HaMelech when one asks a question or a shay with a Rav. Tana, his name, the aforementioned Rebbe of David HaMelech, his name was not Mipi Baishas, ela Ish Baishas Shemai. Ish Baishas. V'lama nikra Shemai Mipi Baishas. Okay, why was he called Mipi Baishas? Shahayim Baish Pnei David Bahalacha. Because when David HaMelech listened to one of his shiurim, he was embarrassed because he was like taken aback by it. It was so incredible. A shiur from Mipi Baishas was so incredible. Even David HaMelech was like, "Wow, this is incredible." Lafikach zacha David v'yatzim mimenu Kilav. Therefore, David HaMelech was zeichet to have a son named Kilav. Kilav was one of the 4 people in history that never sinned. So that was obviously an incredible schus. Really, his name was Daniel, not Kilav. Why did they call him Kilav? Because he would go in front of Mipi Baishas in halacha. And about him, Shlomo would say in his wisdom, B'ni, my son, im chacham livcha yismach lebi gam ani. If your heart is wise, my heart will be glad. In the next pasuk, chacham b'ni, be wise, my son. V'samach libi, make me happy. V'ashiv v'charfi davar, I shouldn't be embarrassed. Okay, so the Gemara asks the question that we've all been wondering the whole time, obviously. V'David mi kari l'nafshei chassid. Frick the Gemara. What do you, David this whole time? What? Like, I'm not to toot my own horn, but I wake up, much earlier than all the kings, and I'm helping husbands and wives get together. All these things. Like, what is David all of a sudden like bragging? Of course not. That's obviously not what's happening. So why does David keep on saying, "Oh, I'm a chassid"? We say this in LeDavid. We say 30 days before, right? By Rosh Chodesh El, we start saying this. We say this towards the end of LeDavid. In Tehillim, there are dots on top of the word lule. Why is that? So Amar David, I believe. So David says to Hashem, I believe firmly that you reward tzaddikim for doing good deeds in the world to come. That I know. But I don't know if I'm worthy enough to be included in their chelik. I don't know if I'm worthy enough. So we see that David HaMelech himself doubted whether or not he was pious. So now he's coming out and just like being this, I'm very pious because I did this and this and that. David HaMelech had doubts about himself. So how can you just say that he knew he was pious? That was a given. So Gemara says, no. Shema yigroim hachet. He was saying he knew he was a chassid and he knew he was pious and he knew he deserved, not in a haughty way, but just to know, knowing how important avodas Hashem is. But he was worried that because of the sin that he did, that would cause his downfall, and maybe he wouldn't be included in the chelek with tzaddikim. Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi, Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi says, it said it's written in the pasuk, V'hinei anochi imcha, behold I am with you, v'shamarticha b'chol asher telech, and I will watch you everywhere you go. So even though Hashem told Yaakov Avinu, I'm with you, and Yaakov Avinu knew that he was with him, it still says Vayeri Yaakov, that Yaakov was scared, despite this. Because he was scared that there are sins. Because Amar Shema Yigom Achet, he was scared that maybe the sin caused him to not be with him anymore. So it's not that he didn't know. These tzaddikim were scared of their sins. That's what it boiled down to. Kedetanya, like we learned in Raisa, Ayavar imcha Hashem, Ayavar imzukanisa, Ayavar imcha Hashem. So let's break down the pasuk. Ayavar imcha Hashem. What does that mean? Zu bia rishon, the first coming into the base to the base of Mikdash. Ayavar imzukanisa, zu bia shni. This is referring to the second time. Mikanim chachamim ru'uyim hayu Yisrael laseis lahem neis b'mei Ezra. From here the chachamim say that the Jews would have been worthy to have a nace in the days of Ezra, just like they had a nace. They had a big nace in the days of Yeshua ben Nun. So, in reality, the Jews would have been worthy to receive the same exact nace that they received in the days of Yeshua ben Nun in the days of Ezra. Why weren't they worthy? Because of a sin. The sin caused them to not be worthy anymore, and we see that David HaMelech and Yaakov Avinu both knew they were pious people. It's a reality. When you're that holy, you know it. Obviously not in a haughty way, but you know it. But they were scared that their sin would maybe cause them to not have a chelik with those people, or would cause Hashem not to be with them for whatever reason. Okay, we'll stop there. The 2 dots, very interesting. Agadatas, the bottom 2 lines from the second last line on Dalet Amud Aleph.